Talofa, malo lei, and kia ora koutou katoa. Welcome to the New Zealand Rugby Women's Health Talanoa, or kōrero, or our little chit-chat today. Really excited to be here with our guests. We are going to be speaking around pelvic health. So something that's not really spoken about. It's a bit tapu, it's a bit taboo. Conversations that are, maybe hidden or we just don't know. So we're going to create a safe space to just have some conversations, build confidence. For me, I'm really learning something new today, so I'm really excited about that. But this is some really good stuff that a lot of us are curious about. There's going to be lots of questions, so let's be prepared. Yeah, and just to get us started, if you just want to introduce yourselves, a little bit about yourselves and how you are connected to rugby and how we support women in sport. So I'll hand it over to you both.
Kia ora koutou, kia ora kōrua. He iri tēnei no Ngāti Porou te aitanga hoati te whakatohia me te whānau apanui hoki, ko Maumahara Keelan tōku ingoa. Yes, my ancestors derive from the east coast of New Zealand. I was raised with all women. So I've got 2 older sisters. My dad had 7 sisters. I have daughters. So if you were talking about what brings me here, I suppose having 20 years of working experience in health and athletes and having daughters, it's kind of like a really important place for me to be here as Māori. So to see that through a different lens, that's all. So that's why I'm here today.
Yeah, welcome back.
Hi.
Kia ora, I'm Bex, like you said, and I'm very grateful to be here and I'm grateful to be having this conversation. It's an area of physio I've been involved in for quite a long time. I did start my journey 25 years ago into physio as a musculoskeletal sports physio, but very quickly found a passion for women's health and pelvic health when I saw the effects it was having on women in sport. So I'm based in Auckland, but over the last little while the conversation started rolling that females have different physiology, different anatomy and probably different health needs. And we need to start having the conversations to make sure that they're all being met. So this is what I've been doing recently in sport.
Yeah, very cool. So we have 2 physiotherapists by trade, experience, but lots and lots and lots of experience. So when we talk about pelvic health, in the rugby context, what does that mean to you both?
So pelvic health, I'm talking about the pelvic floor muscles, talking about the pelvic organs, so your bladder, bowel, your reproductive organs, and why historically, obviously, issues in this area have been known to have sort of emotional and physical well-being effects. I think we know now actually there's some performance, also some performance issues around this, and it has an effect on the body as a whole, and it is really prevalent in sport, and it's not an area that's talked about or discussed or helped in any of our athletes along, so it's now starting to become much more of a known issue, and we're starting to address it, which is great.
And I think from a cultural lens, Maumahara specifically, actually for all women and girls, it's not even a normal conversation to have.
Yeah.
Then when you look at, for me, being Pacific, being Samoan, it's not an easy conversation to have amongst our peers, let alone, the people in our community. So why is this so important?
Yeah. Like you were saying, it's not a conversation we have in our households. There's some real experiences that people have documented in research saying, my mum said, don't show your pain, just suck it up and go through it, or even conversations about you don't talk about you're leaking, or when I jump I leak, or we sometimes just giggle about it, but we don't actually air but actually it's an issue that we actually need to air up and talk about. I don't know why we didn't speak about it. I always think, if I think way back before people arrived in this place, maybe it was, we were openly speaking about our tinana, our body, quite openly, and then stigma happens and we become really closed off. We need to normalise this conversation as soon as possible.
And we know more and more women are playing rugby in a traditional male-dominated sport, is where we find it even harder to break this conversation because it hasn't come the whole way through with the sport. It's a new aspect, it's a new consideration, and it's not really given any priority.
Yeah, and when you look at rugby as a whole, rugby in our country has been around for 100 plus years, yet women, it's still relatively new.
Yeah.
So when we think about pelvic health and in rugby, we often spend so much time focusing on scrums and lineouts and, speed and strength and the like. But pelvic health really has any airtime. We know why. That we're going to change that. So this is a real cool conversation. We know that it affects confidence and performance and the well-being of so many players. So with that, we're just going to open up. How would you explain what the pelvic floor muscles do?
Yeah,
Bex?
so it's funny because it's not a muscle we see like our biceps or understand really well. So I'm a really visual person, so I did bring my little pelvis along because I think it's easier to see. So this is your pelvis, and the pelvic floor muscles run from the pubic bone at the front to the tailbone at the back. So they were like a hammock. So they're supporting your pelvic organs like your bladder, uterus, your bowel, and so they're sort of supporting from below, and these ligaments also supporting from above. They're the muscles you sort of squeeze when you need to hold on and can't get to a toilet. They're also the muscles when you get to the toilet that you relax to go. But they're also a very dynamic muscle. So when you're moving in the day, they're doing little things that we're maybe not even conscious about. When we jump and cough and sneeze, they're contracting so we don't leak and we have support. We're changing direction. They're very, very subtly going on in the background. So not until things go wrong do we often realise that maybe we're not using those muscles as well as we could have. So they play a really important part of your core as well. As you can see, those attachments are right into the sacral ligaments here, the pelvic joints, really close to the deep hip muscle. So they play a really important role in the stability of your pelvis, core stability, core strength, yet they're not really thought of like the other core muscle groups, and they're not really addressed or talked about like the other core muscle groups because they're associated with embarrassing bowel bladder problems, and in the past it never really come up.
All of that. I'm glad you brought that because I need to see it and understand it. You spoke about why it's important for our women or our female rugby players to understand that. There's so much impact when you're taking the field, and then when you're in the gym, there's so much impact then. We've got to be strong, so you're asking our players to do this. What are some of the symptoms that may not be part, or, that's maybe not normal, or... And this is all new to me.
100%.
Yeah.
And, no symptoms are really normal. Why they're really common, I think a recent study of rugby players themselves in the UK went across 4 nations, and the rates were between 60 and 80% were leaking. So that's a huge number of women experiencing the symptom that's not talking about.
Really... when we're saying leaking, what do we really mean by leaking?
So we're talking about urinary leakage. So leakage of wee when you don't mean it to. And it can either be when you cough or sneeze with impact and suddenly it's like, or it can be you're rushing to the toilet, you don't make it in time.
Literally, I've just had a little accident.
Literally a little pee. And so that's probably the most known symptom of pelvic floor issues, but there's actually heaps of other symptoms that perhaps aren't known about or are misunderstood. So, rushing to the toilet, you should get an urge to go and be able to go in time. You shouldn't need to race there. You shouldn't need to be going every half hour or every hour. So they can be signs something's going on as well. And bowel health as well. So having difficulty, constipation is a huge indication of pelvic floor dysfunction. It also affects incontinence. And prolapse is another symptom, maybe discussed with women after babies because it is more common at that time. But that's like a heaviness. It's where one of your pelvic organs sitting lower in the pelvis and they feel uncomfortable or a bit of a heaviness. And a lot of women don't know what that is and are too afraid to ask because they don't know it's a thing even. So pain is probably the other big one that again isn't really talked about. So pain with tampons or pain with intercourse or speculums, that's not normal. A lot of women have always had it, so they think that's just what that should be, but it shouldn't be interfering with what you need to be done. And also painful periods, actually there's a lot of link in there with pelvic floor dysfunction as well. They might be mildly discomfort, could be normal, but if you can't train or you can't play, you can't go to school, that is not normal, and that is something you need to see someone about.
All right, there's a couple of things there that I've just picked up. So, rushing to the toilet's not normal. You should be able to go to the toilet freely. Tampons may, sort of pop out. That's not normal. Pain. So these are a couple of things that you guys have just mentioned that's not normal with our pelvic health. With rugby movements or increased, sort of pressure on the pelvic floor, this whole time I thought it only impacted women that have just had babies and are coming back. You're telling me this can actually be for lots young everyone?
Yeah. So right from young adolescents right through, and there's different, females go through different stages and ages. There's hormonal influence on the pelvic floor. The female pelvic floor anatomy is different than the male, so there's an extra orifice for the vagina, so it's less supportive. Our pelvic angle's wider, so it's much harder for us to sort of get those movements right compared to men.
Right.
So your rugby specific is obviously the high impact. It's going to put a lot more pressure down on the pelvic floor. Bracing with the abdomen is going to put it down. Jumping, landing from a jump. So if you're at the gym and you're training all your muscles to be strong for rugby, but you're not training your pelvic floor, you can't really be surprised it's not keeping up with the demands when you put it into that situation.
Yeah, and I always think, we prime our bodies for sport. Like we usually warm up, make sure our bodies are ready for sport, but we forget you can actually squeeze in like pelvic floor examples into like your warm up without anyone knowing.
Yeah, that's the beauty.
That's the beauty. So normalising, yep, I'll get my pelvis in alignment, I'll wake up my glutes, I'm actually going to do this at the same time.
Yeah, wow.
So, yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a training program for me that has had like pelvic health movements or warm-ups or...
Yeah, and it's one of the
any of
4
that.
key components of your core, and we all know how valuable your core is and how much it's worked and how much it's addressed in general strength and mobility. Yet one of the key muscles groups is not talked about, which is a bit bonkers.
Yeah.
We train our upper body, lower body, core. Yeah, let's include it into your everyday strength and conditioning.
And it is literally another muscle, exactly the same as every other muscle. It can be tight, it can be weak, it can be stiff, it can be a bit sluggish, it can have all the same issues, yet it's never asked about or considered in any sort of dysfunction around that area. So,
And it's not too late to train that area?
No, never too late.
It's quite funny, We normalise leaking.
Yeah.
Like we normalise it, and then we think, oh, this is normal, I'll just put an extra
Especially
pad on.
postnatally, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's not,
But you can actually have a better quality of life if you do like simple exercises. Hey, Beth.
And we know, I think the stats, something like 1 in 2 women will drop out of sport because of pelvic floor issues if they're having it.
way.
That was a big study done by Jodie Deher, So it really interferes with women's ability to participate, for us to have those role models for our younger girls later in life when often symptoms can come up. So, it's sort of, if you don't know you can do something about it, you just stop, don't you?
Well, and that's a huge stat if you think about the number of girls that are falling away from sport, and if
it's
this is something
another
that can be
issue.
preventable. This is really important. That's why it's important that we're having those conversations. With our coaches, what are some of the things that our coaches can, how can our coaches recognise when a player might be struggling?
Yeah, we were just chatting about this. I think knowing your athletes really, really well, like not only knowing family and actually having the time to know your athlete, personally, but knowing their movements. Like you kind of know when your athlete's off. It's like they might be avoiding jumping, or like they might going in a tackle a little bit different, or with scrums they might take a little bit of a break, or just notice something's off, and you could pull them aside and just say, hey, you all good? We were saying it's probably a nicer conversation to have one-on-one rather than in front of everyone. But actually pulling up the point, like actually saying, oh, you're different, are you okay? They might say no. I say, oh, I've noticed you're moving like this. And so take note of your athletes. And
I think being aware of peak times when it might start becoming an issue. So puberty is a peak time when bodies are changing, hormones are changing, things start moving differently, bodies are growing and can be a bit all out of sync. Obviously pregnancy, postnatal, if your athlete's coming back and really cautious around exercises or avoiding certain exercises, create some space for them to maybe explain what's happening and think about modifications. And menopause, perimenopause again is sort of another change in time where symptoms can start to come up where they maybe had been doing an exercise okay for a while and now all of a sudden they're not feeling comfortable with it.
Really good. There's some really good tips there, like really knowing who your players are, so you're not going beyond a player, you know them as people. And then the other things are maybe recognising what stage they are at, puberty hitting. You've talked about premenopause or menopause. Funny story, after I've had babies, well actually my first baby, so everything's all new, everything's changed. I've come back to training, and so on one occasion I was just like, oh my goodness, because you are told to drink, it's good.
Yes.
Take your water intake during the warm-up, but then you start the training, and then I'm just like, I could not stop the leakage, and my eyes was... Anyway, luckily my husband was in there. But, for coaches, they may not know what you're going through. No. And then the other occasion, we're going through the warm-up, we're about to start training, and then there was 3 of us that just shot down to the bathroom, and our coach was like, are you guys kidding?
Yeah.
You're like, no, we're not, just wait.
Yeah.
But, it's, he was, because he was a father, like, he understood. But, there'll be lots of male coaches out there that may not actually
especially with that,
understand.
you're saying if it's the younger girls that haven't had babies and they don't realise it could be an issue. But that can really, avoiding fluid intake is one of the biggest strategies women do to avoid leaking. And then you can imagine all the performance concerns that can have, or notice that they're going to the toilet all the time. And so that can be a wee sort of eye-opener for coaches, or a bit of a sort of alarm bell.
Yeah. When we talk about environments, what's a mindset or language that helps normalise this conversation?
I always talk about like a safe space for anyone in any environment. An athlete should be able to talk openly without feeling judged, without feeling shy. So having that environment, I think it's really important that the coach gets to know not only the athlete, their family, etc., etc. Really create a home environment at training or within a team. Those are the big things. So making sure they can openly talk about the issues. If they don't want to talk, you can have other people with safe spaces. Create little groups if they need to. Like they might have a buddy inside their team and just go and chat to such and such about this. Or you might have new mums in the team who get it. They can chat to each other. But I'm really understanding your athletes, who can talk with who if they're not comfortable talking with that particular athlete. Use your veterans in your team. Use the mums. Use other people that they'll feel comfortable with, again creating that space.
Yeah, and I think having athlete advocates is really important for our young girls, for if athletes can explain and make it not so scary as a thing to talk about, or know that someone else has been through that. And also just for physios and strength and conditioners, talking about the pelvic floor muscle like any muscle, like stop ignoring the fact that it's there, and just say when you're doing your core, engage your pelvic floor. If this puts pressure on your pelvic floor, let me know when we're doing this exercise. Those sorts of things, rather than just completely ignoring the fact it's there.
Yeah, there's some safe options there, right?
Yeah, shared experiences. When someone, you'd get it if you hear someone having the similar symptoms as you. You're like, whoa, I've had that. And you tend to silently listen from afar, but it's kind of like you're actually learning and engaging. So opening up that situation to have people share their experiences as a team, creating that safe space, hey?
Should we be avoiding anything or saying? I know there's little jokes here. Sorry, my friends. Sorry, my friends that I used to mock. I will stop. Yeah. Any recommendations there?
Yeah, not making fun of it, because we're trying to create an environment where people feel comfortable to speak up, so they're not thinking it's a failure or they're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
But also not putting a badge of honour on it. I think in a lot of sports, with the high, powerlifting, heavy lifting, if they're lifting so hard they've really, pushed themselves. And again, that's not how those two things work together necessarily. So
Yeah. Oh, no, I think I've spoken about just creating that safe space, hey?
Yeah.
And that's the main area I would focus on.
When are some of the times like that our players should actually seek some, expert help,
Obviously, any symptoms, you'd want to see what's going on there, because it's not normal to be leaking, and it's not normal, to have that heaviness and those sorts of those pain symptoms. But also, like if you want to empower yourself and be proactive, and you want to learn how to do pelvic floor, and you're unsure what you're doing, there's help out there. There's resources. There's physios, especially if you know you're at high risk. We know athletes are significantly higher risk than the general population of these problems. So you're at high risk. There's other groups we know, like hypermobile, if you've had a family history, those sorts of things. You might want to just take that on board yourself to go and see someone and get some help.
Because the conversations aren't normalised yet, how can clubs access, support easier? Is there, clubs and unions?
Asking for help within the health professionals, and if they can't offer that, they should be able to guide you where to go. But absolutely, like having little posters up of you have posters in the gym, how to do a core workout and crunches and that sort of stuff. Add some pelvic floor in there, add those words, add those images, so they're not new, they're not foreign, it's just another muscle group. It's in that space, the gym space where it should be being worked. So just making it more normal all around in the background is probably really,
because it's not there, right?
No, it's not. Yeah, and it's not there like at even your regular gyms.
No, exactly.
Not yet. Could you just go could someone like me just go to your GP as the first stop if, like, I don't have a physio part of my team? Could I identify that? And then I'm just thinking from a GP point of view, they should be able to direct us.
And sometimes it's important to have a medical check because there might be other reasons. It's not always just pelvic floor. It's just that it's a common management strategy that works really effective in treating a lot of these symptoms. But there can be medical things that need to be ruled out. So I think, having that relationship with GP, discussing all the things, and they would normally be very familiar with referring for pelvic floor physio, giving you a bit of advice themselves as well.
Yeah.
I think just taking your step out the front door and going to these appointments is a huge thing. You're actually being really brave. So if you feel like you're not seen or heard properly, seek a second, third, fourth opinion. Take family with you. Create your own self environment. You're the captain of your own waka, of your own health. So if you think things are out of the norm, create a little safe space, go together.
I think it's something like it takes women 7 years on average to seek help for incontinence. That's sort of the average amount of time that someone
That is absolutely crazy. 7 years of just
holding it in, normalising it.
Especially when it's actually the sort of evidence base for pelvic rehab out there is highly successful and not scary, doesn't need to be scary. It's, it's a bit of muscle strengthening, sometimes some muscle relaxation work, sometimes just some core work and technique work. It is crazy when you think how easily often the symptoms are managed. And also, while you think you could put up with it, it's not that bothersome. We know there's a lot of long-term, effects as well. So women who are leaking early in their career are 8.5 times likely to have significant incontinence later. You can have all those performance issues. Women often change the way they land or doing things differently, and that's going to increase your general injury risk as well. So there's definitely performance gains, not just symptoms.
So there's actually specific things that you can do to offload your pelvic floor, like hills. Hills are better than running flat. Coaches will love that. Really, send them up hill sprints.
Win-win.
Hill sprints.
Someone tell my coach this.
There's ways to modify so that you're not putting too much pressure through your pelvic floor.
Right. So is it not jarring? I'm just saying, the impact of going flat. So uphill is better. The incline.
You're leaning forward. There's more support under that sort of urethra. But I always when I'm explaining about the core, we use my ball. So you've got diaphragm, pelvic floor, abs and back. So that's your core cylinder. So if you're hammering down here, that's going to be pressure on the pelvic. If you're doing a lot of upper abdominals, that's going to be pressure. So it's sort of working out all your muscle groups, how they are together. If you're in a bad posture, even that's going to put more pressure on. So there's lots of little tweaky things that will take pressure off pelvic floor, but will actually improve your actual core strength and stability and actually improve your, what you're doing. So it's a win-win.
I was just looking at the next question I had here was around performance. How do you enhance your performance if you understand, how important your pelvic health or the pelvic and how it moves and how it works. So, that's a really good one.
Absolutely. And also, if you're taking away those symptoms, you're going to have, that fear's not going to be there, that confidence is going to be there, you're going to be able to go for it and not have to hang back 10% because worried that last little bit might cause a leak, or at the end of the game if you're fatigued and you're like, I better not do that now because I might leak, and it's not in the back of your head and you've got, you're feeling really strong and powerful.
I definitely have learnt a lot, so thank you for sharing. I just wanted to give you back, if there was one piece of advice that you could give to coaches, parents or players about supporting our wahine with our pelvic health, what would that be?
Should I go first? I made a list.
Hit me, Mama.
Right. So with regards to your hauora, your health is your priority. So learn to invest in your health. We pay to see a dentist, we pay to see a nail technician. Invest in your health. And if you don't feel seen or heard, go seek a second opinion, create your own space. So that's a really good one. Know your normal, know who you are, what's normal, what's not normal. And also, listening to what Bex has said, understand what bad looks like so that you're kind of I really need to go see someone. So understanding that. Also, if you're too afraid to kind of go into that GP, educate yourself. There's lots of little apps that you can go on. I think it's
Squeezy app.
Yeah, Squeezy app. There are Kegel apps. There's YouTube. So find really good platforms that you can look at. So we've got podcasts. You can see our podcast, YouTube. There's different type of places you can educate with. I suppose for parents and coaches, like openly talk about it, normalise it. It's a muscle. We don't need to put taboo around it. It's kind of like, you train your glutes, you train your pelvic floor. It's simple as that.
Very good, Maumahara. I love it. Awesome. I was going to summarise, but I'm going to throw tips.
No, I think that you've summed that up so beautifully. I love sitting here next to you. That's incredible. And I just can't say enough to empower yourself with knowledge about your body. It's your body, and like I say, the more you can learn and understand, the stronger you will feel. And to fellow physios and coaches and things, try and create that environment, have that bigger view of what might be going on, create those spaces, allow that person to come to you, be mindful of these things. And it's just exciting that we're even having these conversations finally, so it's very cool.
Yeah, well done, you two. What I take away from today, I'm really encouraged that not only do we have more data, more research, more resources out there for our young and women to access, is that we've actually got professional experts, lived experience such as yourselves. So we're very, very grateful for having you both on our Talanoa today, or our kōrero. I'm going to book you in for the next 3. No, just but no, I'm serious. I've learnt so much. I can imagine how this has just opened up more conversations for those who have tuned in. Really, really value your expertise, and also just the way that you've just clicked today. It's just like we would have thought you guys have met 3 years ago. And everyone that's tuning in, thank you for joining us. You would have heard some of the resources that are available to you. Please start making this a normal conversation. This really is nature, right? This is really how our bodies work. So really encourage this Talanoa. Thank you.